Well, all of those crimes actually were connected back to him, the big guy. Any money that Hunter Biden may have made off of those crimes, which he's now been pardoned for, well, much of it funneled back to this guy and members of his family. In giving Hunter Biden a pardon, Joe Biden has also given himself a pardon. Joe Biden announced to the world that, in fact, he would be pardoning his son, Hunter Biden. Now, I know, show me your shocked face, right? We all knew this was going to happen, each and every one of us. The only question really last night was, why now? A lot of questions circulating about the timing of this. Why not do this the morning of Trump's inauguration? Do it on your way out the door, right? Maybe it'll get hidden on inauguration day and people won't talk about it. Or even better, maybe you overshadow Donald Trump's news cycle by sort of bigfooting it. Well, the fact that he did it yesterday, he did it now, this far out from inauguration, that's part of the clue to the real reason why Joe Biden pardoned Hunter Biden. We're going to reveal that coming up in a bit and also point out what everybody's missing about what this really means. But first, let's get to the details of this pardon. Here's the statement from President Joe Biden released last night. Today, I signed a pardon for my son, Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making, and I kept my word, even as I've watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Remember that, okay? Remember that. That's going to be important. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It's clear that Hunter was treated unfairly. He goes on to say, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's case can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There's been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober. So says Joe Biden without any evidence, by the way, but more on that later. Even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution and trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. Okay. Now, it would have been one thing if the statement that I just read to you was completely different than the statement that Joe Biden put out. It would be one thing, I think, if Joe Biden's statement was, listen, this is my sole surviving son. He has obviously had a troubled life beyond just addiction problems. It's not easy being Joe Biden's son, and it's harmed Hunter in a major way. He has broken the law. There's nothing that can change that fact, but he's my son, and he's now facing jail time. And what father wouldn't pardon their son to keep him out of jail? And I'm 82 years old. I don't know how many more years I have left, and I don't want to spend those years knowing that my son is in jail if I could have done something to prevent it. Therefore, as a loving father to his son, I'm granting a pardon. You know, I'll be honest with you. It still would have been lousy. It still would have been a double standard. It still would have been two sets of rules. It still would have been Joe Biden going back on his word. And he did give you his word as a Biden that he wouldn't pardon his son. It would have been all of those things. But at least the statement would have been, yeah, it's my son. What do you expect? Of course I'm going to do this for my son. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said that the Justice Department treated his son unfairly. The Justice Department used the law as a political weapon against his son solely for political purposes, solely because he is Joe Biden's son. By the way, this is the Justice Department that he has complete and total control over, an attorney general that he named and put in place, and an FBI that he has supported, a U.S. attorney in Delaware that he has completely supported, never minding the facts that that same Justice Department, that same attorney general, and that same U.S. attorney tried to make this entire case go away by giving a sweetheart deal to his son and giving him immunity. Forget about all of that. Joe Biden just affirmed everything that Donald Trump and Kash Patel and Matt Gaetz and so many other Republicans who supported Donald Trump have been saying about the Justice Department and the FBI and these U.S. attorneys. Joe Biden, in pardoning his son under these circumstances, just confirmed exactly why you want Donald Trump and a whole new team of people outside Washington, D.C. to clean house at DOJ. Joe Biden just confirmed what Donald Trump's been saying about the Justice Department, that they use the law in a selective, arbitrary, and political way to persecute people, even the president's son. It's remarkable. It's remarkable the ramifications of what Joe Biden has said here. Now, more on that coming up in a bit. But again, let's get to the details here. In the actual language of the pardon, check this out. He gets a pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. That would be yesterday. So that includes 3 years and 11 months of the Joe Biden presidency. Do we think that deserves a little investigation? Wait, why does he need a pardon for the last 3 years and 11 months? I thought Joe Biden just said that he's been clean and sober for over 5 years. So, I mean, the narrative is, well, he was troubled, he was addicted. And so, yes, he did some nefarious things. He needed money to feed his habit. If he's been clean and sober for 5.5 years, why didn't you end the pardon dates 5.5 years ago? Why did he need to be pardoned up until yesterday? What happened 2 months ago that he needs a pardon for? Good question. We'll get to that coming up in a bit, too. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre, asked multiple times while she's been White House spokesperson if Joe Biden would, in fact, pardon his son. Here's what she said.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Okay. We'll go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Again, you've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no. And I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Wow, that's pretty unequivocal, isn't it? By the way, I'd love to show you what Karine Jean-Pierre has said today or is going to say today. But funny thing, Joe Biden is on his way to Africa, and Air Force One is over the Atlantic. And there was a gaggle with the very small number of reporters who were allowed to go with Air Force One to Africa, but they can't file from the airplane their reports while they're over the Atlantic. It's funny, there's no Wi-Fi there on Air Force One for reporters when they're outside of the international boundaries of the United States. That's weird, isn't it? Like if you're flying on United Airlines to Africa, you can be streaming video, you can be on the internet, you could be, tweeting or what have you. But if you're a member of the press pool and you're on Air Force One, no communications. Yeah, but what's remarkable about Karine Jean-Pierre going on this junket to Africa and giving a press gaggle while on Air Force One is the fact that Karine Jean-Pierre didn't turn in her resignation last night after she was publicly humiliated by her boss, Joe Biden. See, that's Karine Jean-Pierre putting her reputation on the line. Asked multiple times, is there any chance that Joe Biden will pardon his son? And she said, absolutely not. Not a chance. Not going to happen. I know this for a fact. Her boss just undermined her through whatever credibility she had left, and that wasn't a lot, in a complete and total bonfire, a trash bin, and set it on fire. And yet, Karine Jean-Pierre is just fine getting on those steps, getting up to Air Force One, and flying off to Africa with her boss. Because, being Karine Jean-Pierre, being a Democrat, being on the left means never having to say you're sorry. She'll be forgiven. She'll get a great job. It's pathetic and it's disgusting. We've been told for quite some time over the last several years that no one is above the law. We've been told, meaning Donald Trump, of course, we've been told that everyone must face justice, right? Maybe you recognize some of these people reminding you that nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law.
This just in, someone is above the law. If your last name is Biden. By the way, did you notice how many of those moments came during the Robert Mueller investigation? That's Robert Mueller testifying before the House Judiciary Committee with his results from the Russian collusion investigation. An investigation that found no criminal wrongdoing by President Trump or any Russian collusion of any sort. There were a couple of convictions, but it had to do with stuff that happened years ago by people who were in Trump's orbit or worked on Trump's campaign, but it literally had nothing to do with the Trump campaign. But that doesn't matter. It gave Democrats an opportunity to grandstand and say no one's above the law, whereupon in this context with Robert Mueller and Donald Trump, I would say, yeah, you're right. No one is above the law. You threw tens of millions of dollars at an investigation on charges that were dreamt up by Hillary Clinton and the Steele dossier about non-existent Russian collusion. And there were no criminal findings in any way whatsoever related to Russian collusion. So sure, no one's above the law. What point are you trying to prove here other than no one's above the law? Except Hunter Biden, who in fact is above the law because his dad is Joe Biden. Forget about all of those Democrats, though. What about this guy? He wants to make sure you also know that no one is above the law.
I'm calling for a constitutional amendment called No One is Above the Law Amendment. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law. The American principle that no one is above the law was reaffirmed. The justice system should be respected, and we should never allow anyone to tear it down. Those responsible can be held accountable. In my administration, no one is above the law.
Well, technically, Hunter Biden wasn't in his administration, so I guess it's just fine that Hunter got that pardon. Although, if I remember right, Hunter Biden was conducting cabinet meetings there in the final days of his dad's time as the nominee. Remember after the debate and everyone huddled to try to figure out whether Joe would be able to stay on the ticket or not. And then Hunter went to the White House with Joe, and he and his stepmom, Dr. Jill, were actually sitting in on meetings with his dad, the president. I mean, maybe that's where they concocted the scheme to give him the pardon. But no one's above the law. No one at all is above the law, except Hunter Biden. Well, and Joe Biden. See, it's an interesting thing. All of the crimes that Hunter Biden was accused of and what were clearly evidenced on that laptop that we were told was Russian disinformation and was a fake and was a fraud. Well, all of those crimes were actually connected to this guy, the big guy. Yeah, in pardoning his son, Hunter Biden, for any crime that he may have committed or may not have committed and was accused of or had not yet to be accused of, dating all the way back to 2014 through yesterday. Well, all of those crimes actually were connected back to him, the big guy. Any money that Hunter Biden may have made off of those crimes, which he's now been pardoned for, well, much of it funneled back to this guy and members of his family. In giving Hunter Biden a pardon, Joe Biden has also given himself a pardon. Now, I know you may come back and say, but the Supreme Court just said that there's immunity for actions that a president takes, and that would extend to a vice president as well. So he didn't need to pardon his son to keep himself clear. Well, it's funny. There was a 4-year window there when there was a lot of money flowing into Biden Inc. when he wasn't vice president and he wasn't president. And well, that actually could be chargeable for Joe Biden. He could actually be charged for whatever crimes were discovered there. And secondarily, if he personally benefited from any actions he took as president, and you can draw a direct line to money ending up in his bank accounts or buying him houses or helping out his family members for actions that he took, well, that could also fall under certain crimes that have nothing to do with the immunity. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because now there's a pardon in place, and Hunter Biden, he gets to walk, and presumably so does Joe Biden. He gets to walk too. So what's the real reason this happened? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to make you wait for it. But first, here's some things that everybody's getting wrong about it. First of all, if you saw that letter that I just read to you, Joe Biden focused in specifically on the gun charges. That would be Hunter Biden lying on a gun application, then illegally disposing of a handgun in a trash can next to a public school. And then the tax evasion charges, the money that he's supposed to pay taxes on that he never did, that he's facing a conviction for. But this pardon goes well beyond just those two laws. It goes all the way back to 2014. Why 2014? Well, 2014 also happens to be the year that Hunter Biden joined the board of Burisma, an energy company in Ukraine. Now, not to jog your memory too much and knock those cobwebs out, but yes, that's right. That's the same company in the same country, Ukraine, where Donald Trump, as president of the United States, made a phone call to the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, and said, listen, pal, we're sending you millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in aid. This is even before Russia invaded Ukraine. We're sending you money for humanitarian aid. We're sending you money to defend yourself so that Russia doesn't invade your borders like they did once Donald Trump left office. We're sending you all this money, and yet we're seeing all this corruption going on. You're not investigating it. I can't keep sending American tax dollars to Ukraine if I know that it's going to a corrupt government and corrupt people. And by the way, the corruption in your government seems to be linked to the highest levels of corruption in our government, the past government, because Vice President Joe Biden is tangled up in it. You need to start investigating this, or we're not going to send you all of this money. Now, that's the phone call that Donald Trump made that was then leaked by Eugene Vidman and Alexander Vidman to Adam Schiff in the House of Representatives, and that began the impeachment of Donald Trump. Think about that for a minute. The impeachment of Donald Trump over a phone call to the president of Ukraine to investigate obvious corruption and obvious illegality linked back to the Biden family. Well, that phone call that started the impeachment has now been 100% vindicated, because Joe Biden just gave his son a pardon for anything involving his connection to that Ukrainian energy company. Now, doesn't that tell you that Donald Trump had every reason to call the president of Ukraine and investigate this? I mean, seems to me that you don't impeach a president for asking to look into criminality and corruption and say, oh, no, that was just political. You were just trying to hurt Joe Biden and hurt his political chances, when in fact Joe Biden just pardoned his son for the exact thing Donald Trump wanted President Zelensky to investigate. So people have kind of gotten this whole thing wrong, that it's just Joe Biden helping out his son, and that this is a double standard, which it is, that Joe Biden lied, which he did. Yes, that's a big part of this. Sure it is. Sure it is. But I'm going to tell you something. Leading your news with, well, it looks like Joe Biden has reversed course, and even though he promised not to impeach his, or not to pardon his son, he's gone ahead and pardoned him anyway. Oh my gosh, Joe Biden has no integrity, no principles, no values, and he's a corrupt, pathetic jerk. That's not really news. We've known this about him. He's been like this for 50 years. He's a horrible man, and he will lie, and he will cheat, and he will deceive for his own pathetic political gain. Look at the Charlottesville lie. There are very fine people on both sides. I can't believe he said that about veins bulging out of their necks, neo-Nazis. That's the reason Joe Biden tells us he ran for president in the first place. And that was a lie. Everything about this man's political career has been a lie. So don't lead your big news report today saying, oh, wow, this is an outrage. He lied about pardoning his son. That's not really the big deal here. You're wrong. Of course we know he's a liar. But in doing this, he's just vindicated everything that Trump said in that phone call with Ukraine. Every single reason that Donald Trump was impeached was just validated by Joe Biden pardoning his son, Hunter. But it goes beyond that as well. It goes well beyond that. when Joe Biden was running for president, these stories came up and everybody in this town knew about it. Everybody in Washington. There was a Vanity Fair article back during the primaries featuring Hunter Biden, asking the open question, will Hunter Biden's past ruin his father's political ambition? Now, when it looked like Bernie Sanders was going to get the nomination, Barack Obama stepped in and engineered the Joe Biden coup. And, well, at that point, it was baked in the cake. Everybody had to circle around Joe Biden, and everyone who was worried about Hunter Biden's corruption in his past, they all got amnesia. And they said, there's nothing wrong with Hunter. Everything's fine. Let's just get rid of Trump. And we'll bring a virus from China if we have to. But every single thing that Joe Biden said during that campaign as the story was coming out about his son, every denial, every assertion that he never talked to his son about his business dealings, that was a lie. Every time he said he never met with any of his son's clients, that was a lie. Every time he said that he never got involved in any of the business dealings, that was a lie. Every time he said that the laptop that had all of that evidence of multiple things on it, that was a lie. Every time he was asked in a debate about his son's business dealings, and he said, my son never made money from China and he hasn't done anything wrong, those were lies. And if the American people knew the truth, and if we had journalists and media that actually wanted to hold him accountable and find out the truth, well, Joe Biden would not have been named president at the end of the 2020 election cycle, but he was. In fact, one of the major talking points that Joe Biden had against Donald Trump during that campaign was, this guy just got impeached for following up on lies about my family and about my son. Well, that was a lie too, now that we know that Joe Biden has now pardoned his son for everything. Joe Biden pardoning his son going all the way back to 2014 validates that Joe Biden lied to you, not just about his son, but during that entire campaign. Everything about this man is a fraud. And he just validated it. He just validated it by doing this on his way out the door. But the question still remains, what's the real reason he did it now? And what's the real reason he did it in the first place? I mean, it could be to get himself off, sure. It could be because he loves his son so much, sure. It could be because, he wants to cement his legacy in some way that isn't tarnished by his son's criminal dealings. I guess so. Who knows? But you know what? In this case, I want to take Joe Biden at his word. Joe Biden thinks the Justice Department is corrupt. Joe Biden thinks the Justice Department acts politically. Joe Biden thinks that the Justice Department at any given time can bring charges against anyone for political purposes just to try to destroy them. That's what he said in his letter. And by the way, that's exactly why Donald Trump just won the presidency. Because we know for a fact that that's exactly what Joe Biden did with his Justice Department against Donald Trump. And by the way, against about 1,600 people who were involved in the chaos on January 6th. Make no mistake, this one pardon of Hunter Biden will lead to hundreds, if not over 1,000 pardons for anyone whose life was destroyed on January 6th. And that seems appropriate, doesn't it? It seems incredibly appropriate. Everybody is missing the point about what Joe Biden's pardon really means, because the ripple effect from the campaign to January 6th to every single charge against Donald Trump and the impeachment process, it's all connected back. And he just validated all of it by saying, my son gets a pardon for this entire time, because he just admitted that his son has been breaking the law that entire time. And that was the basis for everything that you just saw. So why now? Why now? What's the real reason he did it right now? And the answer is pretty simple if you think about it. If you think about who Joe Biden is, if you think about what his career has been, if you think about how he's acted in a selfish, narcissistic, egotistical way, if you think about his career And everything about him as a public official, a public servant, an elected official, if you think about him as a senator, as a candidate for president, as the man who tried to destroy Robert Bork for his own political gain, man who tried to destroy Clarence Thomas for political gain, the man who tried to destroy Mitt Romney and Sarah Palin and John McCain and Paul Ryan for political gain, the man who would say and do anything to hang on to political power and screw everybody in his path because he's Joe freaking Biden. If you think about that, then it becomes very clear why he did this. The man is still angry over what his pal Barack Obama, his pal Nancy Pelosi, and his protege Kamala Harris did to him last July. The man is still angry, and the man is still bitter that they pushed him out of the way, thinking that he was done, he was over, he couldn't win, and we got to bring Kamala in. He's still angry and bitter, and this is his last, well, maybe not last, but this is a major way to get back at everybody who he thinks screwed him. See, if he just wanted to save his son and exit stage left and get out of town, he would have done this the morning of January 20th, before he left the White House for the very last time, before going up to the Capitol for the inauguration of Donald Trump. But he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't just want to save his son. This is Joe Biden's big ol' FU to his own party, because every single Democrat in Washington, D.C., from Kamala Harris to Nancy Pelosi to Chuck Schumer to every single senator, Democrat senator who's going to be sitting there scrutinizing Donald Trump's picks for his cabinet, every single one of them has to own this now. So when Democrat senators are sitting there questioning Kash Patel or Pete Hegseth or Pam Bondi for a cabinet position or FBI director position in the Trump administration, they're going to grandstand about what they did. They're going to grandstand about the rule of law. They're going to grandstand about the pristine, totally non-political Justice Department and FBI. They can't. They own this pardon. They need to either defend it or they need to eat every word they've ever said about Joe Biden and his integrity and his love for our country and the rule of law. They can't do either one. And every single time they come after Kash Patel as FBI director or Pam Bondi as attorney general or any of the assistant or deputy attorneys general who have been nominated, and they try to go after them by saying, well, you're just going to upend the whole thing and you're going to use the Justice Department as a political tool for revenge against Donald Trump's enemies. Every single one of those witnesses or every single one of those nominees can just look back at that Democrat senator and say, with all due respect, unlike Joe Biden, your friend and your colleague, the man that you defended, unlike Joe Biden, Donald Trump hasn't done a blanket pardon for a family member who has been caught up in corruption at the highest levels. The fact of the matter is, Joe Biden thinks this Justice Department went after Hunter Biden for political purposes. And if you nominate or if you confirm my nomination, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get to the bottom of it, because that's wrong. That's not fair. That's not fair that Hunter Biden was unjustly investigated and prosecuted. And if Joe Biden's right about that, then we're going to look into it. And that's a problem. That's the reason why I'm here. I want to fix the Justice Department. That's what Joe Biden's done now. And every single Democrat in this town has to own it. Every single one of them has to wear this now as a badge of dishonor. And Joe Biden did that on purpose. Think about it. Think about the optics here. Joe Biden does this on Sunday night, December 1st, and then gets on Air Force One, and he goes right on to his heading out to Africa while reporters are screaming at him at the time. That's the only image you need, man. Joe Biden meandering over to Air Force One, climbing up the short stairs into his plane, damn it, so he can fly off to Africa without any accountability, without having to answer any questions, and leaving this mess behind for his pals, the ones who threw him under the bus, the ones who betrayed him, the ones who ripped him off of the ticket because they thought Kamala Harris had a better chance of beating Donald Trump. He leaves the mess behind for them all to own and for them all to clean up. You want to know the real reason why Joe Biden pardoned his son last night? The real reason why he did it now instead of waiting till later? It's because Joe Biden just doesn't give a crap. And that's who Joe Biden is. That's who he's always been. Open an IRA in gold with Birch Gold, and you'll get free silver shipped directly to your home. That's right. That's right. You're getting free silver because you know me. It's the most wonderful time of the year, the only time of the year that Birch Gold gives away a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. And the best part, you don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. Yeah, that's right. It's literally free. Simply convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And Birch Gold is going to send your free silver coins directly to your home. Now, you might be thinking, why do I need to diversify gold? My guy's heading to D.C. Things are good. Well, here's the facts. An administration trying to reverse a $36 trillion national debt in just 4 years is like a field mouse trying to stop a freight train. It's not going to be easy. We have a huge amount to pay on that interest on the debt, let alone the principal. So take action now. Protect your savings. Text Larry to 989898 before December 18th. Get a free info kit on gold and to claim your eligibility for free silver on qualifying purchases from Birch Gold. Do it before December 18th. Again, text Larry, Larry, to the number 989898 for peace of mind that lasts longer than 4 years.